Welcome to another episode of the Coaster101 podcast. I'm Andrew Stillwell in North Carolina, joined again this week by Eric Woolley out in California. Hi, Eric. How are things out west?
I'm surviving. It's kind of smoky here in San Francisco, but you know.
Well,
surviving.
Don't catch on fire.
If I sound raspy, it's because of the poor air quality. Next week should be better.
That's fair. And after a few weeks hiatus, we're glad to say we didn't fire Shane, and he's back this week, checking in from Quinnipiac University. Hi, Shane. How's college?
College is going pretty well. It's pretty much as safe as you can get with thousands of people in one space. It's going fine.
How much time are you spending in your dorm room right now?
Actually, quite a bit, because most of my classes are online, so...
Got it.
More than I would like, but we're working on it.
Okay. Well, this week we're going to talk about some attractions that we haven't made it to that we really want to. And among the 8 of us who write for the Coaster101 team, you know, we're fairly geographically diverse. Obviously, Shane's up in New England, Eric's in Northern California, I'm in North Carolina. We've got guys in Tennessee and Florida and Ohio and Michigan. So we're kind of all spread out. But for one reason or another, we've all got our geographic blind spots, and as an extension of that, our theme park blind spots, some parks and attractions that for one reason or another we have not experienced. And so our question this week is, what are some of your most embarrassing and or biggest theme park blind spots? Not necessarily embarrassing in the fact that it's like, you know, just really embarrassing, but what are some places that you feel like you should have been to but haven't yet?
As enthusiast places that it's like, it's sort of like, I'm a little ashamed that I haven't done this yet.
Yes, exactly.
Got it.
And so, Shane, I know compared to Eric and I, and I'm not throwing shade here, you've traveled a little less than the two of us.
Yeah, that's fair to say.
He's got like 10 or 15 years to catch up.
I know he does, so it's fine. We're good. But Shane, what are some of your biggest park blind spots? Some parks that you haven't visited yet for one reason or another, but you really want to.
Yeah. Well, I'm about to lose all my credibility in about one sentence. So my blind spots are pretty wide-ranging. We have Cedar Point, Busch Gardens, Williamsburg, Dollywood, Great Adventure, any of the SeaWorld parks, and Kings Island and Kings Dominion.
So,
to name a few.
Sound the GP alarm for Shane.
I know. Look, I've been almost 100 coasters, so somehow I've never been to any of these parks. Actually more impressive, I think. But anyway, yeah. I think the most egregious one of these to me, besides Cedar Point, is Six Flags Great Adventure, just because I'm fairly close. I live, like a little less than 4 hours away, so, it definitely has been doable in the past few years for, like, maybe a long weekend or, sometime over vacation. But I don't know, for whatever reason, I've just never been able to get down there. I've been trying for a few years. But next year, hopefully I'll be down there to try out Jersey Devil. So that is definitely one that I will be fixing in the near future.
Gotcha. Yeah, those 4-hour trips, they're like just perfect enough to drive and not fly. But any further than that, it's tough to do, but it's still a long drive in the car. But Eric, you visited Great Adventure a couple years ago, didn't you?
Yeah, so Great Adventures, of those, I think Great Adventure might actually be the one that I've been to the most. Maybe Cedar Point. And that I've always I've been very lucky to like always be able to tack going to Great Adventure onto other trips. I once went when I was going to West Point for a football game at Army, Stanford at Army, and we, like, the group of friends I was going with was like, let's fly out a day early and go to Great Adventure first, because you had to fly into New York anyway. And I once went when I had to be in New Jersey for work and was able to be like, didn't have anything to do after 4 p.m. in the summer in New Jersey. It was like, well, I can go spend 4 hours at Great Adventure. Let's do it. Which, I mean, that is one of we talked about this a little when answering question about ways that we would improve Six Flags a few weeks ago. One of the great things about Six Flags is if you have a season pass to any Six Flags, you can go to all of them.
Yep.
And so that was like being close to a Six Flags. I always had one. So that was like, if I'm in New Jersey, easy to go to Great Adventure. And it is, I'm I mean, I highly recommend it. You should do it, Shane, especially if you have a pass to Six Flags New England.
I do, so I'm going to try.
It's a park that it has lots of flaws. It's like hard to get around and the layout kind of sucks. But like El Toro is one of my favorite rides.
Yep.
And Nitro and really the whole coaster lineup that they have is really good. And I would also like to go ride Jersey Devil when it opens. So, but I think you shouldn't feel bad, Shane, because actually like half of those things you listed, I also had not been to until about a year and a half, 2 years ago. So that was like until I made like I had to make a conscious effort of I'm gonna go check off a bunch of these parks that I haven't been to. And did that a couple years ago. So had we recorded this 2 years ago, I would have been in pretty close to the same boat as you on a lot of those. Andrew, did you, of all of those, are there any that you haven't been to?
Shane mentioned Dollywood. I've been to Dollywood, not in a couple of years. I'm looking at the list now. I've been to all the parks that Shane has mentioned. They're good. You mentioned Busch Gardens, Williamsburg, and King's Dominion, and I mean, I don't know what that is from Massachusetts or wherever Quinnipiac is. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's all right. It's about, I think, 8 hours from my house, Massachusetts. So again, it's like a long weekend or something. I've been trying. Again, that's another trip I've been trying to pull together. So, but hopefully soon.
The good thing about those parks is you can do them in a weekend. Obviously.
Oh yeah.
You do a Busch Gardens on a Saturday, King's Dominion on a Sunday, and you get back up there. I mean, they're only an hour apart. Two really, really high quality parks. Different things to offer for people, which is great. But yeah, that is a weekend trip I've made several times, and that's right about 4.5, 5 hours for me, depending on which park I go to first. So it is definitely one you throw a cheap hotel in there one night, and I did do the weekend trip last year where I left at 4 a.m. on Saturday morning to drive from North Carolina to Virginia, and I don't think I'm going to do that again. But
I feel like that's probably also there. I bet there are tons of like cheap, quick flights from Massachusetts down to like DC, which is
probably it's a little more expensive than you'd think, but yeah. I've been looking at a few things, so
excellent. Cool. Eric, what about you? What are some of your blind spots?
Yeah, so like I said, I checked off. I checked off a lot 2 years ago when I did sort of an East Coast-ish road trip that like checked off places like Hershey and Busch Gardens, Williamsburg, Dollywood, which were all big favorites of mine. So that's sort of, I think, having checked off a lot of the biggest ones for me, probably the biggest one left is SeaWorld Orlando. Like Shane, I've been to SeaWorld San Diego, but even that was many years ago, despite living in California, just because it's sort of, I always go to Disneyland or Knott's or Magic Mountain instead if I'm going to Southern California. But I think SeaWorld Orlando is the one that is like, oh, this is a very large park with lots of roller coasters that are always highly ranked or discussed as being the best of this type of coaster. So that I think that's probably the biggest blind spot. Other big ones that I have sort of been like, oh, this park is really big, I should go there at some point. Canada's Wonderland is one that like, it's not like it's harder for me to get to Canada's Wonderland than it is to get to Cedar Point or something. So that's one that I think partly that is until a few years ago, not really realizing how big a park it was and how many kind of well-known roller coasters it has. So that's a pretty big one. And then something that I think all of us were, Coaster101 was planning to fix this blind spot, but all of the parks in Texas, so the two big Six Flags parks down there and SeaWorld San Antonio are big ones that was sort of like, oh, these are probably things that I should have been to at this point. Silver Dollar City is the other one that I think it's not quite as big a park, but it every time I see it or read about it, it's like it sounds like a park I would like a lot.
Yep.
So
Agreed.
That's why I sort of like I don't know if that's like an embarrassing blind spot, but it's high on the list of places I want to go that haven't been to. It's a little bit harder to get to than Texas.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's like what's prevented me from going too.
Yeah.
So it's not very accessible.
you've got SeaWorld and Silver Dollar City both on that list. And, the thing that those two parks in common is they both have sharks in their park. I don't know if you've been reading Twitter at all, but allegedly Silver Dollar City has sharks in their new Mystic River Falls River Rapids ride.
That sounds great. It should make it it's just fun for the whole family. Have you been to any of? I mean, I know you've been to SeaWorld Orlando, Andrew. Have you been to any of the other ones?
I have.
Yeah, have you been to?
I haven't. SeaWorld Orlando. Again, I grew up in Florida, so we would do a Disney or Universal or SeaWorld trip, a couple times a year. I went recently 3 years ago. The year they opened Mako, I believe it was, or the year after.
Yeah.
It is a great park, like you said. Obviously, there are people who are kind of anti-SeaWorld because they don't like animals being kept in, big swimming pools.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And, but this is a roller coaster podcast, so we can talk about the roller coasters and kind of just... I mean, SeaWorld does obviously a ton for conservation. They do a ton when it comes to rescuing animals. They do a lot of good things. That's all I'm really going to say on that. But Manta, their flying coaster is fantastic.
Yeah.
Different from the Manta Out West, which is kind of more of a family launch coaster.
Yep.
Mako, great B&M Hyper, kind of wraps around the lake. Journey to Atlantis is very fun. It's kind of got it's technically a roller coaster. It's one of those just I believe it's Mach who did it, but it's got some roller coaster elements as well as a very themed drop ride, or a water flume ride rather. And then Kraken is great. Obviously it's 20 years old as of this year or last year, whatever it was. Still provides a great ride. I'm really glad that they don't do the VR on it. That's another conversation for another day. But yeah, I think it is a great coaster park. It's a park you can do in half a day, depending on what's open. I know there's been some talk recently in the news of how certain areas of the park are closing shortly after open or shortly, and it's a staffing thing and it's a demand thing, but
during normal times, not
Yes.
not a concern.
What I will say about SeaWorld Orlando is they've got this trackless dark ride, which is like Emperor of the Penguin or something like that, and you will wait in line forever if you want to ride it. The ride experience is far shorter than it needs to be. It does not take advantage of the trackless technology, and it dumps you out pretty quickly in like this penguin habitat, which is really cool to experience a penguin habitat, but you can go straight to the habitat if you want to. You don't have to ride the trackless dark ride. That's what I will say on that.
Good to know. I think the reason that so I've actually only been to Orlando twice, and I think part of the reason that I haven't been to SeaWorld is if I'm flying all the way to Orlando from the West Coast for 4 days or whatever, it's like, oh, probably gonna go to Disney and Universal while I'm there. So like I think I either need to start going more frequently or need to like go for a full week where it's okay. So I've spent 2 days at Universal, I've spent 3 days at Disney. I can now do a day at SeaWorld and not feel like I've messed up by going to Orlando.
So you got to do it, a day at Disney, a day at Universal. You got to hit both fun spots. You got to go to the Holy Land experience.
No. Maybe.
Okay.
I'm going to check off the bigger tickets first.
Oh, also don't forget Icebreaker coming next year to Orlando. So
yes.
That'll be big.
Yeah, I think I'll need to do an Orlando trip that gets Icebreaker and Hagrid's at Universal, and if Disney still opens some of their rides next year or the year after, I think that'll be like
Iron Gwazi, just an hour down the road.
Yep.
True. So Andrew, what are some of your? It sounds like we might have some overlapping blind spots, but what are some of your park blind spots that you're sort of most anxious to fix?
So the biggest two on this list are Hershey Park and Knoebels. I've done Dorney, I've done Kennywood. You could probably throw Sesame Place on there because I really want to ride Oscar's Wacky Taxi of all things.
Yeah.
But Hershey is a park that's like it's a 7-hour drive or a quick flight from Raleigh to Philadelphia and then a little bit in the car. My college roommate, I've been threatening to visit him in Philadelphia. I need to go to Hershey. And every year something comes up for one reason or another that I do not make it to Hershey. This was going to be the year because Candemonium looks amazing. what they did with the entrance looks amazing. All the other fantastic roller coasters they have, and then COVID hit. I don't know if you guys have heard of this virus. It's called COVID. It's kind of a big deal apparently. But I also want to, Knoebels, the Twister, Flying Turns. Those are
Phoenix.
Thank you. That's the other one I was missing, and it's just like
that's sort of the best note. They're all good though, all good.
Yeah, so those two in Pennsylvania. I need to get up to I consider the whole region of the Northeast New England. I know that's not technically correct, and Shane, don't yell at me. But the parks in New York, and I want to go to the American Dream Mall with Nickelodeon Universe.
They're opening, I think, next month with all their rides finally.
I was gonna say, I thought I went out of business.
No, they're opening up. I think they got all the coasters finally done, so I think that's next month. I don't know if you want to go to an indoor park right at the moment, but whenever you feel safe to do so,
I think
it will
it's
be
safe
open.
to assume us checking off any of these blind spots is like
far in the future,
2021 and beyond.
Yeah.
And then just a couple other ones that I want to just touch on real quick. I am somewhat of a Cedar Fair fanboy, and I took a Sporkle quiz this week when I was bored that was like, name all of the Cedar Fair roller coasters in the chain, and I got 99 out of 122, which I thought was pretty good. And then
That's pretty good.
People on Twitter were telling me that they got like all of them, or like, I got 108. I'm like, okay, fine, show offs. But I learned a lot taking that quiz, in that I don't know anything about Canada's Wonderland because I've never been there. I was missing like 9 of their 18 coasters or whatever it is they have. Valley Fair is another park I really want to get to. I've never been to Minnesota. And then Eric, one of your home parks, California's Great America. I need to get out there too, just because it's, again, another park I know very little about.
It's I think that Great America is a perfect park to do if you are come on vacation to San Francisco and then spend half a day to a day at Great America. And go to Discovery Kingdom too if you're out here, because you might as well.
That's fair.
Both only an hour from San Francisco. I wouldn't come all the way out here just to do that, but like definitely easy to tack on to another trip, because it's on a non-busy day it's a half-day park, right? Any of them.
And I got a buddy at Stanford. I got to go visit him, so we're fine.
You haven't been to Hershey or Knoebels. Have you been to Dorney?
I have.
Or Great Adventure?
I've been to Dorney and Great Adventure, and I ticked those both off on a kind of a smaller road trip of my own. I went up, I did Six Flags America, I did Six Flags Great Adventure, I did Dorney, and then I did King's Dominion on the way home. And I'd been to King's Dominion before, but it was those parks that I had never been to that was, kind of high on my list. But yeah, I really like Dorney, and I remember being at Dorney when I was driving home. It was like my third stop. I had the drive between Dorney and King's Dominion to drive. I was talking to Mike Fainall, who's Dorney's GM, and he goes, if you've got time, you got to check out Knoebels. And Knoebels, obviously, it's a very unique park. They're still pay per ride, right?
Yep.
At least they were in August 2018.
Yeah, they still are. I checked this summer.
Gotcha. Yeah. And they've got a Fascination parlor, so I always want to play Fascination. So
yeah, I mean, I loved Knoebels, and I did it. I sort of trying to remember exactly what I did. I think I spent a day and a half at Hershey, and then half a day at Knoebels, and then Dorney for half a day to a day. And it was, I mean, when I was there in late August, it was probably on a weekday, but Knoebels was mostly empty. I think I maybe mentioned this on an earlier episode, but it was pay per ride, and I got a certain number of ride tickets saying, okay, perfect, I'm gonna ride Phoenix twice and Twister twice, and then half a day I'll be done. And I blew through all of my ride tickets in 2 hours or something. I was like, well, it's still 11 a.m. I'm gonna need to get more ride tickets. So yeah, it's lots of fun. They've got a ton of very unique and interesting flat rides. Their haunted house scared the hell out of me. It's pitch black, and then there's a super loud truck horn that made me very much jump out of my seat. I think they advertised their bumper cars as the best bumper cars in the world, which I think might actually be accurate. I think they were the fastest bumper cars I've ever been on. Also kind of terrifying in a way. So yeah, Knoebels is great, and it's easy to. It's a little bit out in the middle of nowhere, but still close enough to other things that like
Right.
easy to tack on half a day at Knoebels along with something else. Like do the if Hershey still does their like if you buy a ticket you can come in the evening before.
Right.
Like you go
Yep,
to Knoebels,
yep.
then do evening at Hershey, and then Hershey the next day, and that's like a perfect 2-day setup of those parks. So
Love it.
highly recommend it.
What about some parks that we've been to, or haven't been to in Shane's case, looking at his list, but some parks that we've been to, but you're missing an attraction. If you couldn't ride it, or it was closed that day, or in my case, you got walked off, or if there are some other parks for whatever reason what are just attractions that are embarrassing blind spots for you?
So for me, I think the biggest one of like, again, ignoring parks that I haven't been to or like rides that opened this year, I think the biggest one is Lightning Rod. So I went to Dollywood in August 2018, and that was, I think I've talked about this on the show before. It was the summer that Lightning Rod was basically closed for the entire season, or like 2/3 of the season, for whatever reason. It's closed again, isn't it? Did it reopen?
It is.
I think it's open. I think it's open now.
That's
Who
good.
knows?
John was
Yeah,
there
so
this
that was
weekend. I
like-
think it was closed.
Oh,
Okay.
no, so
Never
that was-
mind. Never mind.
So it's down again. So that was like, I had wanted to go to Dollywood anyway, and I was planning to spend 2 days there, and it was great, but part of the motivation of like, oh, go now was how much John loves Lightning Rod, and Lightning Rod is loved in general, and it was not open when I was there. So that mostly just made me pissed off at Lightning Rod. And kind of like now I leave it off any list I make. But it is like, okay, I need to go back to Dollywood to get that. I think a lot of the other ones are things that are coasters that are not at big parks. Superman at Six Flags New England, which Shane, I know that you're a
Yes,
big fan of.
big fan.
So like that's, I don't know too much about Six Flags New England, but it's never been super high on my list of like parks to go out of my way to go to. But that's sort of Superman is like, oh, that might be enough motivation for me. To,
It
like,
is. They're
go out of my way if
Superman
I'm
and
on
Wicked
the East
Cyclone.
Coast.
Great.
Oh yeah,
1-2
Wicked Cyclone,
punch.
too. So that's one, and then Boulder Dash at Lake Compounce is one because again, roller coaster is super highly rated, but like,
Yep. Very good.
am I gonna take a trip just to Lake Compounce? Maybe not. One of those things that like, okay, I try and sneak this onto something.
You got to loop it into a New England trip somehow.
Yeah, exactly. And then maybe a broader category is really Gravity Group roller coasters. Turns out that the only one of theirs that I've been on is the Voyage, and that's just I don't know, right there in places that I haven't been or something. And so that I think is Ravine Flyer 2 is them, right? So I think when you were talking about it, Andrew, that made me think like, oh, I should look up one. And I was like, oh, nope, I just haven't been on any of these, but they all seem so good. I'll need to start adding some of those. And then there are newer coasters at other parks like Busch Gardens Tampa. I haven't been to since 2008, so Cheetah Hunt is one that I would love, and I'm sure they have tons of other new coasters that I have been on, but that's like I love Maverick, so Cheetah Hunt would be high. Mystic Timbers at Kings Island, like I love GCIs, and know lots of people would say that's their favorite GCI, so that's one. But yeah, a lot of so a mix of sort of middle of nowhere or like parks I haven't been to in a while that I think. Have you guys been on most of those, all of those?
No, not me.
I've not been on actually any of those. So
Oh.
I've been on some, the New England one. Cheetah Hunt, obviously, I love. One of my favorite rides, just so much fun.
I
Busch
take
Gardens,
that back. I've been on Cheetah Hunt.
yeah.
Sorry, wasn't
Yeah.
paying attention.
It's
My
a
bad,
good
Eric.
one.
Have either of you been on Boulder Dash?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
A couple times. It's definitely a great ride. But again, like you said, you got to add another park in there, Six Flags New England or a couple other, small ones near here. Gravity Group, Wooden Warriors up here if you want to check that off too. That's right a couple minutes away from Lake Compounce, so that'd be a good thing to add to one of those trips too.
So it sounds like I should just go to New England. And
Yeah, I think so.
Check off a bunch of these. things. So Shane, what about you? Are there any, aside from parks you haven't been to, are there any like specific roller coasters, either parks you haven't been to in a long time or that were broken when you went to the park, that kind of thing?
Nothing. I don't think I've had any luck bad luck where anything's been broken, like while I was at the park. I did miss out on a few things. Like I was at Universal Orlando when they were building Diagon Alley, so I have not been on Gringotts coaster. So it was in that time period where I missed out on Jaws and Diagon Alley. So that was a tough time to visit there. And same thing, Busch Gardens Tampa, I went last year, so I missed out. I saw them building Iron Gwazi, so just missed out on that. Other than those two, I don't think I've missed out on anything. I would love to get on a Giga Coaster at some point. That would be great. Been on a Strata Coaster, but not a Giga Coaster. So hopefully, and a bunch of those parks I named have them. So hopefully at some point in the future, I'll be able to check that off my list. And same thing with El Toro's, another one that came to mind, with Great Adventure being fairly close. I would love to get on that because it definitely seems like a ride that I would really like.
Yeah, gotta get that Great Adventure trip down.
Yes, yep.
Next year.
Next year, Jersey Devil. Well, once Jersey Devil's open.
And you did mention Carowinds earlier, but Carowinds has a really good Giga.
I know.
I've said a couple of good things about it on this podcast. So
the few things. It's on my radar.
Everyone can go back and listen to our Andrew's Guide to Carowinds episode from a couple weeks ago, where we actually didn't talk about Fury too much, but you can listen to all the other reasons to go to Carowinds too. And Andrew, what about you? Any ones that? Well, actually, I want to know what the one that you got walked off of.
Oh, I've been walked off of several. Yeah, it's as a bigger guy, this is such his life. But several coasters at Cedar Point, Top Thrill Dragster, Steel Vengeance, a couple of the kiddie coasters even. We were up there for Coaster Mania a couple years ago, but I couldn't ride Millennium Force. But I've ridden Millennium Force before.
Yeah,
couldn't ride Top Thrill Dragster. Couldn't ride Steel Vengeance. I got walked off of Superman at Six Flags America because I didn't use the test seat, and just Intamin coasters in general are not very friendly to those with larger body dimensions. Those are the ones that come to mind that I've been walked off of. So I've got to go back to those parks and ride the various rides. Some other ones, I've got this fascination with riding all of the operating roller coasters in, certain states, and the ones that are, my home state of North Carolina, there's 18 roller coasters right now, 17 if you don't include the new mountain coaster, and there's one that I'm missing, which is the Ruta coaster at Santa Land in the mountains of North Carolina. That's like my white whale roller coaster in North Carolina. It's terrible.
Yeah. Andrew, if you want to just start telling people you've ridden it, I won't.
I wouldn't even. Yeah, tattle. I would not even know to question.
Or just telling people that roller coaster doesn't
exist because I wouldn't have known.
Nope, RCDB doesn't lie, guys. And I keep unlike Eric. I know Eric is an anti-credit counting guy, and so
indifferent to credit counting.
I'm a big credit counting guy, so I get that.
But so I got to do that, and same thing with Virginia. I've ridden everything in Virginia but one roller coaster, which is the Great Pumpkin Kiddie Coaster at King's Dominion. Maggie Sellers, who is the director of PR communications, whatever her title is, she's got a young son. She's offered to let me borrow her son to ride this ride. So Maggie, if you're listening, if the offer still stands, I'd love to come to King's Dominion next year and do that.
I'll join you.
All right. Yeah, Shane.
King's Dominion.
Shane, we'll make a weekend of it. We'll do Busch Gardens and King's Dominion.
I probably won't ride the kiddie coaster, but I will go to King's Dominion.
Shane, do it for the credit.
That's the one thing I won't do. I won't go on kiddie coasters. Not really my thing, but
okay. See, Shane, you're a normal person. That's good.
You guys. Some other ones, Lightning Rod, Eric, like you mentioned, I just haven't been to Dollywood since it opened. And it's a bummer because obviously the two of the best RMCs in the United States I haven't ridden, which are Steel Vengeance and Lightning Rod. Mm-hmm. So that is what it is. Mystic Timber's another one you mentioned, Eric. Again, haven't been back to Kings Island since it opened.
Yeah.
Obviously need to ride Orion as well, but again, COVID. I was supposed to go to Coaster Stock this year and was going to ride all those things. It's going to be a great day, and it just didn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that happens a lot with parks that are not super close to you, where it's you sort of have to decide, how many, if I don't want to go every year,
right?
How many new coasters does it have? Should I go back to Kings Island to ride Orion and Mystic Timbers, or should I go to Canada's Wonderland and ride 16 new roller coasters, kind of thing?
Therein lies the challenge.
We had we had a really good streak there going for a couple of years, because we did Holiday World the one year, and I tacked Kings Island onto that trip. We did Kentucky Kingdom.
That was the last time I went.
We did Kentucky Kingdom and tacked Kings Island onto that trip. So, I mean, we had a pretty good streak going for a couple of years. I just haven't been back. And then the other one that I'm thinking of right now that is really bothering me is Six Flags Over Georgia. I haven't been there since I was a kid, and it's 6 hours just on the other side of Atlanta from me. But it's right there on the precipice of it's too far to drive, but I don't want to pay for a flight to go there and rent a car and drive in Atlanta traffic. So I have to just... One day I'll get down there. I'll have to ride Daredevil Dive and Twisted Cyclone and their Joker Kiddie Coaster. Sorry, I'm going to ride the Kiddie Coaster, guys. It's what I do.
I feel like that's another one that you need to decide you want to go to Atlanta for, like, a different reason, and then
go
one day of Six Flags Over Georgia onto it, so you don't feel like, I'm driving 8 hours, which is way too much, or paying for a flight that is too expensive and annoying.
Yeah,
just to go to Six Flags Over Georgia.
My alma mater was supposed to have a football game in Atlanta this past weekend against the University of Georgia, and that got canceled too, because again, this is the year of no nice things can happen to anybody.
You could have eaten so much Chick-fil-A. That's the Chick-fil-A Dome, right?
Yeah, it is. It is the Chick-fil-A Dome, and I think they give you free Chick-fil-A coupons or something with those Chick-fil-A games.
Wow.
So we went a couple years ago, but if anybody listened to my my rant on Carowinds food a couple weeks ago, Chick-fil-A and we kind of have a love-hate relationship sometimes, especially in a theme park.
Is Chick-fil-A football game more acceptable than Chick-fil-A theme park?
Absolutely, 100%.
Oh, I think so. Yeah.
Anything is more acceptable than Chick-fil-A at a theme park. That is the hottest of hot takes, and that was what I will stand on. You guys have any more blind spots you want to talk about? Parks, rides, dark rides?
And I don't really consider it a blind spot because it's pretty new, but Hagrid's at Islands of Adventure is like... I wish I had gone when it was open, because it looks exactly my type of ride. Of like, low to the ground, long, well themed, lots of stuff going on, some surprises. Yeah, that's what I want to go on.
Yep.
So that's that opening made me think, okay, that's gotta go up my list of rides to go on. Anything overseas, I think we acknowledged in this discussion that we were focusing on North American parks. There's a million overseas parks that I want to go to that have never found it attached to any other vacations I've been on or things that I haven't done that thing where deciding, I'm going to go on this trip mostly to ride roller coasters in Europe kind of thing.
Yeah, as far as overseas parks, you can add all of them to my list. So I'd like to do that. I also want to...
That's where Shane's got one up on us. He's been
I
to
do.
Efteling,
That's
right?
true. Yes, I have.
All right, Shane. If you're going to keep flexing, I'm going to have to end this podcast. But Eric, just real quick, when you go back to Universal Orlando, you'll have Hagrid to ride and their new Universal's new Osprey habitat that they're constructing over in Jurassic Park.
Oh yeah.
So
their lack of announcement, I think, has actually successfully made me forget that that's happening.
It's all good. Well, that does it for this week on the Coaster101 podcast. If you've got any blind spots that you're ashamed of and want to tell us about, feel free to drop us an email at podcast@coaster101.com. Make sure you're following us on all forms of social media at Coaster101. We are Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube. I think we have a TikTok account. I know that's like a running joke on this podcast. I don't think we post any videos, but...
No, there's nothing on it.
Okay. Thanks for letting me know, Shane.
Maybe when this goes up, we'll see.
Shane, you're supposed to be posting TikTok
Check it out.
videos.
I
You're
know.
back in college and
I'm
stuck
sorry.
in your dorm room.
Yeah, this would be the perfect time. I'll get on that.
If you have
Everybody follow our Instagram, by the way. If we get 10,000 followers on Instagram, I promise I will post my first TikTok video.
There we go. Yeah, we are just shy of 10,000 followers on Instagram. So that's, again, at Coaster101. Wherever you're listening to this podcast, if you have the ability to like, subscribe, rate, review, force your friends to read it, listen to it, because it's an audio form of media. If you can, I've got a friend of mine, they were driving today, and he forced his fiance to listen to it. So shout out to Clinton Chantal for doing that. As always, thanks to JM Music Design for our theme music. That's it for this week, and we will talk to y'all soon.